Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second installment of we call it Cash Trade in the Future. I'm like I should have written down the title here. Eduardo and I are excited to have you back, and I'm really glad to see the attention and the folks that are interested in what it is that we have to talk about. And it's nice today in true Michigan form. We don't have the sun out anymore. We just don't do that in February or March. And so you can actually see me instead of being blinded by what's happening behind us. But Eduardo, I'm excited for our second week. You're gearing up for a long weekend, right? You have Carnival. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Did I just absolutely embarrass myself? Next week, right? Does that stretch through Wednesday or kind of fill us in a little bit on the holiday and how that kind of impacts trade just to start, because we've got that coming at us with a lot of other fundamental things that we've been focusing on.
Carnival in Brazil used to be a very, very slow market. We can see some indications in soybean market or corn, but as we don't have FX market in Brazil, banks will be shut. So the market will formally, it's going to be in the holiday. And then Wednesday, we back.
So it'll with harvest wrapping up, it doesn't really impact everyone's still going to be actively trying to get beans moved to the pipeline. Correct. It's like you said, it'll be slower, but not everything shuts down almost like you see in China, where even it feels like your processors, like you just grain and everything during the holiday, it's just completely nothing moves. A little bit different there. So let's talk about harvest, right? We saw last week, we've seen over the last couple of weeks, harvest progress has picked up. We've seen the weather turn to where it's allowing for the crop to be harvested and moving into the pipeline. Let's focus on soybeans first, and then we'll go to safrinha planting. What's the situation with bean harvest? How far do you think you are from being done? And what's happening logistically speaking? Or are you seeing a backlog of movement that you think will, what's taking place there when it comes to bean harvest?
Angie, yes, the harvest is going. It's going to finish. For example, in Mato Grosso, a lot of producers they just finished the and safrinha planting too. All the regions are picking up, so we have a good weather in the center of Brazil, which is a too now it's too dry, and many producers are afraid about the April for safrinha. But in overall, it's the harvest. It's not a problem anymore. Now the problem, and then we had problem of slow safrinha pace, and then
Mhm.
concentration of trucks in Mato Grosso and very long lines. And now the problem is at the ports, at the terminals, mainly up north. Meritituba, which is Rio Tapajós, is Amazon basin, and Madeira. Those corridors are very important to, for example, big ports like Barcarena and Itaqui. So now they are reducing the quotas. In Brazil, you need this quota to move trucks to the terminals. So they are reducing this week because it's jam. They have fertilizers coming in and soybean trying to flow out, and then everything is complicated. So because of that, the logistics in Brazil is far from being normal.
Interesting. What does that mean? And I've got to plug in my computer, I just realized, so you'll see me kind of drop down here for a second. But what is the lack of logistics being normal? Like, we're seeing basis continue to firm to a certain extent. That's not an indication of more demand coming into the market by any means, right? That's just really an indication of truck rates costing us more. We're not able to move the beans as quickly. Give us a minute sort of deal. Is that what it is? Just working to build that inverse that we're seeing in the market? Because there is a pretty stout inverse currently, right, between nearby movement and deferred. Is that just, the talk of basis firming across Brazil isn't necessarily a bullish indicator, right? It's more of a factor of just let us get our backlog sorted, would you say? Or
Yeah,
is it bullish because we're not, I mean,
it's
I guess
not
what's your
a
thought on that?
it's not a new demand. No, it's a short squeeze. Some guys, exporters, they sold, they short, for example, paper in Paranaguá, uh, during December and in January. So now, because of the logistics, or you know, this kind of trouble, too slow, and March became February. Normally, February is inverted comparing to March, and then overall we have 1 month delayed in terms of logistics, and now we have some few players short, and they are trying to cover paper market. So because of that, April shipment went up this week 20 cents. And since the China festivals in the end of the January till now, we have 60 cents rally
Yeah.
basis Brazilian beans. And now we have seen a very failed trades, but China, some crushers, so end users, they are buying not big number, but big numbers in terms of cargoes. But this week, 11 cargoes have been traded at these high levels. So in Brazil, FOB, we have a short squeeze causing this paper rally. But in China, they are trying to cover the April, and they are buying at these high levels of basis and the flat price.
Well, a lot of folks had thought we would see 2 million metric tons of Chinese soybeans auctioned off this week, and we had a 600,000 metric ton one that was scheduled was canceled. It doesn't appear as though we're going to see reserve auctions at this point in time. So do you think we do see them come in and work to buy? Because it had, you said that about 11 cargoes, ahead of the holiday, we were trading 35 plus a week, right? And then since the holiday, we've been trading almost nothing. It's been almost non-existent entirely. On the idea we were going to see these reserve auctions. Have you had any insight or heard anything on from traders on what is happening there at all when it comes to the reserve? I know China wants higher prices domestically to encourage more planting. Do we see just a continuation of that, or do the crushers come in to the market?
Yeah, rumors of rumors,
Right?
and nothing till now. So
Nothing,
far
nothing solid.
it's zero auctions. Yes, this rumor or news from Bloomberg, noticing this 600,000 of auction that should come to market, but north of China.
Hmm.
Then north, it's like Mato Grosso, or corn belt in the west. So the major crops, major fields are up there. And then the news is supposed not to harm the soybean producers in China. But if that the case, the for my view is China doesn't have a good lots. What that means in good places, for example, Southeast or South China, where crushers are set. So um, I think the lack of beans and soy meal and oil in China will continue, and many talks, many rumors of crushers in China, mainly up north. They have to halt the crush because of due to the lack of beans.
Yeah.
So the situation in China for the next month during March will be very tough in terms of supply of meal in general, because they don't have soy meal, but they don't have any other meal, in good volumes.
Well, they'd cut off canola meal to a certain extent, right? Or at least there was a
Yeah.
concern over Canadian trade. Um, and yeah, it's interesting to me, and I can't quite wrap my mind around it, and that's always what makes me chuckle anytime anyone assumes they know what China is going to do, because it is an odd stretch, or it's odd to me to see, we'd had this conversation about these reserve auctions and turnover and all of that. But we do know that their domestic prices have fallen off and farmers are feeling less than excited to plant again in the coming year. But it'll be interesting to see. We did see the Bank of China get a big injection of money this week that is thought to kind of be tied to the National People's Congress next week, and some announcements that could be coming in to focus there. And so, yeah, China's going to be a fun to watch without all of the trade talk. We haven't even started talking about tariffs, but let's switch to Safrina quick, so we
Okay.
don't. What is
Yeah.
what is the
Just
status? Yeah, go ahead.
one point. I
Yeah,
think it's very important to the Chinese market and the overall demand. The point is, all the logistics in Brazil are concentrated. So we are going to see the same in China. So lots of cargoes will travel to China at the same time, very concentrated. So at the end of March and beginning of the April, and then we can see a jam over the ports out of China. Plus the CIQ, the quarantine in China, the time to take the certifications of GMO beans, normally 7 days, now 15 days or 20. So this is going to continue, and then but this is going to cause a big headache for crushers in China. Then but then in May, for example, and then we are going to see a inversion of uh, this situation, lack of soy meal now, and then very
too
big
much,
surplus.
right? It's
So uh, it's not been easy for traders to to trade in this environment.
It gets harder every day, it seems, for sure. All right, so Safrina, we've caught up on planting then, correct? Conditions, how does the crop look? I know it's very, very early, but what are your thoughts on Safrina and farmer attitude about it? Any concern? Does any concern remain? I feel like the market itself is kind of erased all Safrina concern. It's planted, we're good, no worries. Do you agree with that and feel that way, or are there things that we need to continue to pay attention to?
Now they are afraid of because of it's too hot and turn to very dry. So if that continues, and then we are going to see market adding some premium, risk premium to because of the weather at the end of April and May. Maps, of course, it's too early to see that, but maps are showing a trend of drier April and May in Brazil, which is which would be a disaster for supply in Brazil. And then we have a lot of domestic guys, big ones. They are trying to cover to increase the coverage up to the May and June. The end point is now it's we have no problem, and then the planting is picking up. Okay, but the weather and the maps are showing not big trend to the weather for April, May. And the second point is the window uh, when we are going to start harvesting this safrinha. It's going to be late June and July, 1 month late. So Brazil can't have a big program, export program for July, for example. So that's a consequence, which is a fact. It's
Yeah.
not a speculation.
Uh, what I'd seen in an article, or I'd seen a rumor. It's all rumors that we live in, I swear. But someone had mentioned that the government is potentially discussing a rollback of import tariffs on ethanol and corn. Is that true? Have you seen anything on that? And if so, do you think does it matter? Is it a real thing that we have to be paying attention to, or is it more of a, sometimes the government will say, we're doing this to lower food prices, and they're really, it's more of an act than an actual. Do you feel that you could see Brazil import corn? I mean, I know economically right now it doesn't work, right? Could it? Or is it real? Does it matter? Are my two questions about that.
Yeah, this is speculation. It's not a speculation or something that market is considering, but inside the government, because of the inflation, food inflation, the popularity of our president, and the Lula will run for election in 2026. So the popularity is going down every poll. So because of that, because of inflation, because of the everything together, and then we have this kind of comments coming from the inside of government, trying to create something to solve this situation of, for example, coffee prices, or soybean oil and corn. So the beef, it's going up in Brazil too. So everything is going up. The food inflation, which is not good for the president popularity, and but I think we have to pay attention to the egg minister, which is a agribusiness guy. Uh, he uh, he mentioned, I'm going to quit because of this kind of no pro market
Yeah,
measures.
yeah.
So if you go forward, and then I'm going to quit. If that happens, and then it's a very bad sign.
If that happens, I feel like confidence in Lula, I'm thinking about the central bank, your former central bank head, and kind of the riff that was there, and the problems that it caused with the currency. It was part of the reason that your currency collapsed in December, or got extremely weak, went up, spiked, however you want to, was the worry over Lula's spending, his inability to restrain his spending. And so, there had been chatter too this week, right, that the central bank head currently in place that just started the start of January, he could be moving to a chief of staff role. Is that something too? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of real, um, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say messiness. It just feels a little uncertain, how Lula's government will look in another 2, 3 months, or how he will be able to battle this inflation and all of that. When is the next election? Is it this year, did you say, or is it next? I'm sorry. The next one.
Next one, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. The FX guys, they say the usually in Brazil, everywhere, the elections start to influence the exchange rate through 4 or 3 months before
Okay.
the election. But in Brazil, at this time, they think starting in second semester, we are going to see this kind of market trying to price the who is going to win the next
Mhm.
election. If the popularity or chances of Lula win again, and then FX will move up, because as you mentioned, we didn't. The point is, Brazil doesn't have a fiscal policy right now. We
Mhm.
have the central bank trying to control the inflation, but on the other hand, we have uh, government trying to spend more money.
Mhm. Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't work. Who
Yeah.
because they're still trying to get Bolsonaro in trouble, right? Like does it look like he will run against Lula next, or is it going to be someone? Do you know who? Like, is there an idea of who is coming to run
It
against him?
should be it should be very bad for the market overall because
Messy.
the rejection of Bolsonaro is big
Yeah,
between women, for example.
yeah, yeah,
So then you give more chances to Lula.
yeah. Is so there's it's a lot. I feel I'm such a nerd, but it has such huge implications. I feel like paying attention to what's going on in Brazil's politics is,
Yes,
but it has huge implications going forward with ag policy, with the expansion that we've talked about, correct? Like all of these things. And so it is something that we want to kind of keep an eye on as we move forward, I feel like. Okay. I don't want to take up too much time or babble, but we had a couple things that have popped up that we talked about ahead of our recording here this morning that I had seen on social media that I wanted to ask because I feel like part of the
well,
reasoning behind what we're doing here every week is highlighting some of maybe the lack of clarity or the miscommunication sometimes, or I don't even know, for lack of a better term, I'll call it that. They can take place about Brazil's agriculture and all of the things that are happening because you're huge for the area. The production cycle is a bit convoluted to a certain extent. Who's growing third crop, who's growing second crop, it's just all of these things about Brazil. And we've been told here in the US so many times how Brazil is just going to continue to displace the US. And so I feel like there's a few times where you'll hear this drumbeat continue, where it's Brazil's going to eat our lunch. The US might as well just give up on growing commodities, and so there were a few things that had circulated that had crossed my desk this week that I said, well, I'm going to save those for Friday. I'm going to ask Eduardo. First one first, the conversation about potential soybean cancellations. So here in the US, right, price wise, the US is more expensive than Brazil and Argentina by 20, 30 cents or more as we look out into the summer months, which isn't unusual. But there had been some conversations that we could see Chinese cancellations as a result of the price spread. And so I wanted to get your feel or your opinion. First off, is the price spread between US beans and Brazilian beans historically wide? I feel like 20 to 30 cents is historically low. So that's my first question. And then secondly, what are your thoughts on those? You guys communicate a lot with Chinese buyers. The Chinese market from an import standpoint. Is that real or is it just more we'll call it bear fodder?
I don't agree with that. First of all, because it's not a normal environment. In
Mhm.
normal environment, you could see that. For example, I sold the US with options, and then for a pressure in China, and then they will decide, which is it's not cancellation, which is a washout. So you have to negotiate that. It's very difficult to imagine, for example, Cargill in the US washing out the beans and then revert to fresh.
Yeah.
I don't think it's profitable to do that. This is the first point. The second is if China, for example, Costco selling to Sino from the US or Argentina. Argentina, all the sales that we have seen from the US, it's for March and April, and Argentina sold some vessels, 15, 16 vessels for May and June. Argentina won't have much to sell April. It's not a regular normal window they sell. So I don't believe that. Change to Argentina because of the window, and change Brazil because this beans is not for crush, it's for reserves. So it's not economic decision. So
Yeah.
I don't think we are going to see cancellations out of the West because of many things. And in Brazil, for example, for April, In 2 weeks we are not going to have more logistic for April, so
Yeah.
only for May. But I didn't see US selling anything for May to China.
No, yeah, I mean, I would say, um, seasonally, like I said, historically, like all of these things, like, really we don't have that large of a position outstanding either, with China. I think it's 50 some million bushels currently, which is a chunk. Like, don't get me wrong, if they canceled every one of them, it would have a market moving impact, and even a cancellation of 1 bushel at this point would just open the door up to whatever, because that's what everyone is waiting for in this market. But yeah, I kind of I looked at that and thought, I just don't think you're talking apples, oranges, and I mean I think right now, right, wise too, on the spread, there had been some concern that um Brazil would get cheap enough to where it could work, Brazil beans could work into the US earlier than a year ago. At this point, we're not even looking at that,
No,
correct? Like,
yeah,
it's nowhere near where we were spread wise a year ago. I think we were $1.20 at the widest level last year.
yeah.
Is that?
We sold to Mexico, for example,
Yeah,
three vessels, but the window just closed.
yeah,
So to the west is the same
yeah.
calculation overall, but no, it's not possible.
This,
Brazil is not that cheap like the last year, for example.
yeah. Or even the year prior. I mean, I think we'd sold 3 boats the year prior, and I mean, I
Uh,
think
back into the cancellations or washouts, we have one point which is a very would be very bearish for the West overall.
Mhm.
The that thing about the freights. Oh, your cat.
Yes,
Next
Felix says hi. He wants to chime in.
one. Okay. So if the USTR moving forward with this kind of fines or penalties
The
over
freight thing is
Chinese
huge.
made in China vessels, and
Yeah.
then it's going to be a game changer for the West. In the end, the spread of freight between the West, um, Gulf, or PNW comparing to the South America will widen, and then which is going to be very bad for the US. All
Tremendously.
then
I
we can
did.
see some cancellations
Yeah.
if we have these kind of penalties for owners. So we
That
have
would be a
to
big
to pay
deal.
attention to that.
I tweeted about that this morning. So for those of you who are watching and are wondering what Eduardo is talking about, I tweeted a link. Late last week, we had the Trump administration, or the U.S. Trade Representative from the Biden administration had worked with the Trump administration to project this plan or put out this proposal. And in it, there are fees upwards of from anywhere from 500,000 on the low end, which from the looks of that, even on the lower end, you still are open to an additional $1 million fee. But you're talking 500,000, 750, a million as your baseline fee, depending on the percentage of fleet built in China, percentage of your fleet that was built in China, not how it's flagged, not where it is, all of that. It's just if it was
Made
built
in
there,
China,
made in China, and you're gonna pay. And so based on the math,
it's 40 cents per bushel.
yes, that's what I figured. 40 cents
Crazy.
per bushel on the lowest end, a million and a half or what, like if you're talking about a small load of corn, 60,000 metric tons, and obviously we do ship more than that on a load. He is relentless. Everyone should have the confidence of an orange cat. But yeah, if we do see this in place, and so I did tweet about it. I would like to see our ag industry group speaking out about it, because it's a big deal. And you're right, that would be the thing that would open us up to cancellations, and it would be a game changer. And in my opinion, that is what drove the reversal in the market that we saw last week when we tried to trade higher and Friday we fell apart. That was shortly after the announcement, and I think some folks started to do the math that, wait a minute, this would ruin our export outlook. And I think until we get it remedied, we will see slower export sales. And there will be a lot of people that will point to it as a tariff thing, or that they were right that we front loaded sales. And we very well may have, if we end up killing our export market by adding these additional charges. And so you have to kind of hold on a minute and hold your breath. I think cooler heads will prevail, and they'll figure out how to either change the fee structure or exempt bulk commodities, I hope, but we need to make sure we're speaking out about it because it is a big deal.
Yeah, and freight guy told me that we this week we have the first agreements between the tradings, including these clauses. So if these fees come to real thing, and then the owner have to pay something, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's not normal, and but it started.
And it'll get passed on, and that will limit trade because it's a huge deal. So with that, I don't want to, like I said, I want to make sure that we are aware or respectful of everyone's time. Is there anything that you have that you're thinking of, or that you think we should touch on before we call it a week?
uh yeah, this kind of this thing about Mexico, what Mexico will do, will tariff, uh, chicken, pork, from the US, or corn, or soybean, or soy meal. All of that will benefit Brazil for sure, because we have a lot of chicken to export. Uh, Corn depends, but we can sell 2 3 million tons. Soy meal, whatever. So I think that's the big deal for the next week, and for sure the effects in Brazil, how this is going to evolve. So that's it.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I know we will have no remedy today at all. We're down again another leg in corn. It looks like wheat has given up the ghost and beans have fallen as well. And so that doesn't surprise me. We're not going to have any resolution in this, really until late Monday, if I had to guess, because our president loves the theatrics of it all, I think, to a certain
Yes.
extent. And, a lot of people will be quick to correct me that you in a negotiation, you make sure you get every single thing that you can get. And so we'll see. I do think it gets resolved. I think Mexico's government has really been aggressive in trying to work with the Trump administration. We did see them transfer those cartel. There was 29 members of different cartels that Mexico agreed to a transfer on, and that was described as an unusual and very large sort of extradition style situation. I think, to me, I'm not surprised to see Trump push back on Mexico, because Mexico pushed back on Trump's labeling of their cartels as terrorist organizations. And so to me, I had a feeling immediately he was going to say, no, we're putting tariffs on. Like, you can't push back.
Yeah.
And so to see the cartel transfer yesterday, I think that is an indication that Mexico is finally, they're doing, I picture it as a to-do list. Trump gave each group a to-do list. I do want to see, China has said that they would respond in kind to these tariffs now, instead of, last time they were quiet, this time not so much. And so obviously their response over the weekend will be huge too. But you're right, it's all trade all the time now in the US. And I'm not, like, a lot of people will be sad or upset about corn taking this leg lower, frustrated or whatever. To me, I think this gets your week longs, the last 100,000 or so that had come in. From a speculative sort of standpoint, I think your week longs get shaken out. I think smart money comes back in, at a decent retracement of the gains that we had seen from last fall. Balance sheet wise, market wise, like you and I have talked about why corn could be very precarious this year yet. And so there's a long way to go, but yeah, with trade and all of the things going on, it's definitely risk off. Everyone out of the pool,
Yeah.
is what it is to now
Yeah,
for now, I think.
don't forget the US corn is the most competitive, and then Brazil will
Yeah,
come to the market in August. Argentina, maybe it's going to have a very slow harvest. So it's only the US. I
it is
think
good. Yeah, I mean, we're
they
sitting in the
spread,
catbird
the
seat.
time spread, the calendar spread is, I don't know, it's too cheap.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree with you. I think, we're sitting in the catbird seat. We need to get this freight thing figured out though, because if not, then, it kills the market. If you're an exporter who needs to buy, or an importer, excuse me, who needs to buy bushels, and you may have an additional 50 to $2 a bushel charge added, depending on what ocean freight carrier you use, you're also not buying. So this, it's definitely something I'd like to see a resolution to. It's more
Yes,
important to me, the freight side is than the tariff talk.
for
100,
sure.
like,
That's the big deal.
yeah. So, well, I thank you. We're done with our second installment. And thanks to all of the watchers. I almost said listeners, but I guess you can listen. You don't have to watch. Folks that are tuning in and the good feedback that we got. We'll be back next week with some more insight. We'll see what all transpires between now and then. We'll definitely not be short on information. I can say that. Things to talk about. So. Eduardo, thank you again, and I hope you have a super awesome weekend.
Okay, nice. Thanks. And we say at the end of the carnival next week.
Right? Have a good extended. I won't know what to do without the AgriInvest info for 2 days. Like I'll have 15 minutes of time because I read it every day. I am a dedicated reader. I'll miss you guys. So,
That's very
yeah,
good. Nice.
you have a
Thanks.
good holiday, and we'll be back next week.
Okay, see you.
See ya.